Word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. I am your host, Walter Hendricks. I hope you all enjoyed last week's broadcast. Today we're going to do something else. And it's going to be about the Trivium for now. The Trivium is part of the 7 liberal arts, which consists of the Trivium and the Quadrivium. We're going to discuss a little bit about the first part of the Trivium, which is grammar. There's two kinds of grammar. There's special grammar and general grammar. But first let's take this one here. This grammar answers the question of who, what, where and when of a subject. It is also discovering and ordering facts of reality, comprises basic systematic knowledge. Not only the rules developed and applied to the ordering of words and concepts for verbal expression and communication, but our first contact with conscious order as such. This is the initial self-conscious technique used in properly organizing a body of knowledge from raw, factual data for the purpose of gaining understanding, and thus also organizing the individual human mind. It is the foundation upon which all other methods of organization and order are built. So basically this is an event. It's called Solvinur Radio Event, and it's meant to unmind control people. Most people are mind controlled, and the first thing to release yourself from that is that you need to unlearn a lot of things that you have been taken for granted. This happens a lot when we accept things that we hear and we think that the person speaking is an authority. There are word games played on us, like the word author, for instance. Somebody's writing a book, they should just call that a writer. Why is that called an author? That's to make you believe that you have some kind of authority, which is not true in some cases, maybe in most cases. When you hear somebody claim something, you should find out about this person if he has any expertise about the topic that he's talking about, in the field that he's talking about. And there's more things you should do. I hope to get into that at another point. And the grammar part So, like I said, is special grammar and general grammar. The special grammar properly relates words to other words within a specific language, like English, Russian, or Latin. General grammar relates words to objective reality in any language and applies to all subjects as the first set of building blocks to integrated or fully mindful objective knowledge. A body of knowledge which has been gathered and arranged under the rules of general grammar can now be subjected to logic for full understanding, which, emphatically, is a separate intellectual procedure. Now, last time I said that when you are gathering facts, they may contradict each other, but that's only half of the story that I told, because you may have a full set of building blocks, and if you have no clue what the building blocks are, you have no understanding, you see? So if you think that of one certain building block you have a specific idea, and you try to fit the building blocks together and it doesn't make sense, that means that you have the wrong idea about the building blocks. So there's need for correction, and you need to go back to the grammar stage to find out what are the building blocks. This is very important. The definition of words is also very important. The language that we use today has a lot of words in it that can mean different things under different circumstances. So that's not so good. I recently learned that in Sanskrit, for instance, they have a lot of different words for the word water. And we know water as water, but it could be ice or it could be steam, right? So there's like 25 different words for water in Sanskrit. This helps eliminate any mistakes that one could fall into, because you have a good explanation for each word, a good definition for each word. Okay, I hope you all went to to YouTube and checked out the Gene Odenning videos that are available at YouTube. If all goes okay, I will have Gene Odenning on next week. We were going to make a podcast this week and then I will play it. So if you have any questions, please send them to solvinur2@yahoo.com. That's SOLVINUR, the number 2@yahoo.com. And we'll see if I can pass those questions on. There's another thing I would like to mention before I get into more stuff here. In the past I've talked about this also, even when I was making radio in the Netherlands, and I remember there that I was talking about deductive and inductive reasoning also. If I remember correct, that was the Dutch radio. This is a way of reasoning. Deductive reasoning means reasoning from the general to the particular. Okay, that as a Dutch, that doesn't make really sense to me. But deductive reasoning is reasoning from the general to the particular. Gene Odenning put this more simple so that I can understand it. Deduction is taking an idea apart into its components for understanding. See, that's easier to understand. Then there's also deduction is the process of reasoning typical of mathematics and logic, whose conclusion follow necessarily from their premises. Okay, or philosophy, logic, a systematic method. We're still talking about deduction here. A systematic method of deriving conclusions that cannot be false when the premises are true, especially one amenable to formalization and study by the science of logic. And then there's induction, inductive reasoning. Gino Denning explains this as a dance. It's interesting. We'll ask him when we make the podcast to go a little bit into detail about this, so next week you will get an even better understanding of what is deductive and inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is reasoning from detailed facts to general principles. Right? Gino Denning says, induce senses to see what is around us. That is inductive. Okay? There's more. Induction, under logic, it says the process of deriving general principles from particular facts or instances. So it has to do with logic, right? So we look up logic. Logic, the study of the principles of reasoning, especially of the structure of propositions as distinguished from their content, and the method of validity in deductive reasoning. A system of reasoning is Aristotle's logic. Okay. Then there's also a word that came up which I didn't understand, so I looked it up, and it says syllogism. 1. Logic, a form of deductive reasoning consisting of a major premise, a minor premise, and a conclusion. For example, all humans are mortal, the major premise. I am a human, the minor premise. Therefore, I am mortal, the conclusion. Okay, this is valid. There are also invalid examples. Here, more syllogism, philosophy/logic. A deductive inference consisting of two premises and a conclusion, all of which are categorical propositions. The subject of the conclusion is the minor term, and its predicate the major term. The middle term occurs in both premises but not the conclusion. There are 256 such arguments, but only 24 are valid. Here they say, some men are mortal, some men are angelic, so some mortals are angelic is invalid. Yeah. The only reason why I can find that this is invalid, it says some men are mortal. It's all men that are mortal, so I don't know what the rest of the invalidness is here. And it continues, while some temples are in ruins, all ruins are fascinating, so some temples are fascinating, that is a valid one. Here, fascinating in ruins and temples are respectively major, middle and minor terms. So, let's see. I think we can get into more of this one here. Started this 2 weeks ago. This is all about the Trivium. This is from Letters and Articles 7/21/06, written to an author of a book on primary and secondary education. Dear Mrs., I found the television interview regarding your book on public schooling both informative and insightful. It motivated my writing this letter. Being that I have not read your book, an order was just placed, my comments may be of a nature with which you are already familiar. I share your concern and the concern of any thinking person in America regarding the harm being brought to the current generation of students. In the public schooling system, this harm is the same which was visited upon their parents and, indeed, every generation of publicly schooled students over the last century in this country. Through spillover effects, it has done damage to private primary and secondary schooling, and in particular to university level education. And then there's a quote, I think. Yeah, it's from Sir Thomas More, 1478 to 1535, Utopia Book 1. For if you, and that is the rulers, suffer your people to be ill-educated and their manners to be corrupted from their infancy, and then punish them for those crimes to which their first education disposed them, what else is to be concluded from this but that you first make thieves, outlaws, and then punish them? Right? Why would you first break the legs of a lamb and then kick it because it could not stand up thereafter? We are now witnessing the accumulating negative effects of omitting the three means of learning how to learn, which constitute the integrated classical trivium. The first three of the 7 liberal arts and sciences. The last 4 constituents are called the quadrivium. In the classical primary and secondary education curriculum, the components of the trivium, general grammar, formal Aristotelian logic, and classical rhetoric, are presented to students to train them in learning how to learn, and concurrently in validly thinking systematically. The trivium is presented to methodically gather raw, factual data into a coherent body of knowledge, that's grammar, then to gain understanding of that body by systematically eliminating all stated contradictions within it, that's dialectic or logic, and finally to wisely express and utilize that valid knowledge and understanding in the objective real world. This is rhetoric, also known as wisdom. Once a student is conversant with this threefold procedural pattern, he is now capable, and this is one of the great values of the trivium, of teaching himself with minimum guidance from an instructor or facilitator. How to learn any established subject such as mathematics, geometry, musical theory, astronomy, those are the classical quadrivium, then it continues with some more arts like physics, chemistry, history, philosophy, etc. or of fully grasping any propositional topic he is motivated upon which to focus, like current socio-political issues, newly developing scientific hypotheses, historical and literary analysis, and so forth. In other words, through the process of learning how to learn, he learns how to critically and creatively think for himself. This last sentence sums up the process. The first aspect of systematic thinking is to learn the elements of a proposition or a subject in order to critically define a problem or an opportunity. This is done in the grammar and logic stages. Once defined, we use our creative thought capacity to solve the problem or find ways to take advantage of the opportunity. The classical rhetorical mode accomplishes this task. This makes a person a first-hand, independent thinker rather than remaining a second-hand, dependent thinker. In not only relying on his own organized thoughts, a second-hand thinker, usually one marked by low self-esteem, has his mental content filled by various so-called authorities like the mass media and its advertising, professionals and politicians, some of whom may be unscrupulous, officials, both benign and despotic, in schools and in the workplace. Here's another quote. They must find it difficult, those who have taken authority as the truth rather than the truth as the authority. By Gerald Massey, Egyptologist. The first-hand mode, the trivium pattern of organization, is in fact the way the human mind would naturally order itself for effective thinking, if this process were not aggressively discouraged by various entrenched factions in society, those self-perceived and self-proclaimed guardians of convention. To state the process in its simplest form, grammar answers the question of who, what, where and when of a subject. Yeah, those are your building blocks. Then logic answers the why of a subject. Then rhetoric provides the how of a subject. A major reason the dame school or the one-roomed schoolhouse of the past being taught by one instructor and upper-class men, and the homeschooling movement now gaining traction, was and is successful in that they used the trivium method of education. Success in this context is in producing appropriately critical, creative, self-sufficient individuals who become equipped to attract intellectual abundance into their lives as well as that which naturally follows from it, material abundance. If a person has not been exposed to this method, it is difficult to communicate to him the serenity of mind and self-assurance. And then it says here, the spiritual abundance. Yeah. I had a lot of problems with that. They say in spiritual circles you will also hear that the more self-realized you are, the more material gain you will have also. So, but be very wary of these spiritual claims. Caused by this, let me start the sentence again. If a person has not been exposed to this method, it is difficult to communicate to him the serenity of mind and self-assurance caused by this competence to appropriately validate one's own thinking, as well as the thinking of, and doctrines of others. So, well, maybe spiritual abundance has more to do with mind than spirit, so to speak. Yeah. See, there you go with definitions of words, you see. No amount of personal counseling or therapy can generate the self-esteem of having the ability to orient one's body and mind in the world through what is his most distinguishing attribute, that of his own rational thinking applied in a systematic manner. The pattern of the Trivium is the foundation of this system, which produces an intuitive means to learn new material, not only during periods devoted to formal instruction, but over an entire lifetime. As the study and practice of all music allow the hands to intuitively and immediately produce melody on a piano, for instance, so the study and practice of the Trivium produces intuitive and immediate critical creative thought. It's Gino Denning explains this as if you want to compare it to a computer, the Trivium, once you've understood what it is and you've applied it, so to speak, it will run in the background and things will automatically fall into the right place for you. In being the method to know a subject rather than only to study a subject, it is truly the most fundamental preparation for the leading of a successful life. A gift every child, adolescent and adult should be presented to elevate him to the dignity of self-determination. It is stressed. The Trivium forms a habitual pattern of mind of how to think effectively, not what to think. As an added bonus, this is a serene pursuit, because this is a method devoted to the how of thinking. It is not controversial. It is in the topics of what to think, religion, literature, philosophy and modern science, where controversy reigns. The problem is, general education has not been the focus of the contemporary schooling establishment, but rather social engineering. It is a vile and protracted form of miseducation. After adopting the Prussian education method in America in the late 19th century, this fault in educating our nation from the perspective of the general citizenry was compounded by applying the dangerous tenets of the pragmatic philosophy devised by William James and John Dewey. I recommend an internet word search on each of italicized terms in this paragraph. Alright? So, let's see what we can do here. Copy this. Put that in the search box. Paste that there. See what we get. Alright? So, Wikipedia, no, that's not a source. Plato Stanford, there we go. Let's open this link. Pragmatism. Is that what we're talking about? Pragmatic philosophy. Okay, pragmatism. Pragmatism was a philosophical tradition. Jesus Christ, learn to read. Pragmatism was a philosophical tradition that originated in the United States around 1870. Now be very wary how you listen to this, people, because this is from Plato Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. They will not point you to the devious ideas here. Right? The most important of the classical pragmatics was Charles Sanders Peirce, William James, and John Dewey. The influence of pragmatism declined during the first 2/3 of the 20th century, but it has undergone a revival since the 1970s, with philosophers being increasingly willing to use the writings and ideas of classical pragmatists, and also a number of thinkers such as Richard Rorty. Yeah, right. What is up with these philosophers, right? I mean, how dare you call yourself a philosopher when you're just regurgitating what has been said in the past? Ridiculous. Continuing, Hilary Putnam and Robert Brandon developing philosophical views that represent later stages of the pragmatist tradition. The core of pragmatism was the pragmatist maxim, a rule for clarifying the contents of hypotheses by tracing their practical consequences. In the work of Peirce and James, the most influential application of the pragmatist maxim was the concept of truth. But the pragmatists have also tended to share a distinctive epistemological outlook, a fatalistic anti-Cartesian approach to the norms that govern inquiry. For much of the 20th century, pragmatism was largely in eclipse. Few philosophers were familiar with the works of classical pragmatists such as Charles Sanders Peirce and William James. And pragmatist ideas were not at the center of debate. John Dewey, who had been a dominant philosophical figure in the 1920s, right? Stopping a bit right here. Who makes these guys, these philosophers, a dominant philosophical figure? Who decides that? Do you think that it's the masses of people that all of a sudden say, "Oh, John Dewey, John Dewey"? Seriously. These people are put before us as dominant philosophical figures. In the 1920s was no longer a central figure. Analytical philosophers and their students had a central role in philosophy. It was not until the 1970s that interest in the writings of the pragmatists became widespread and pragmatist ideas were recognized as able to make a major contribution to philosophy. Most of this entry is devoted to the ideas of classical pragmatists, Peirce, James and Dewey. But towards the end of the entry we shall explore what are sometimes called the new pragmatists. These are philosophers who revitalized pragmatism, developing ideas that evidently belonged to the pragmatist tradition, as well as figures mentioned above. These include Philip Kitcher, Hugh Price and others. Alright. Pragmatism. What kind of nonsense is this? One, pragmatism and pragmatism. Huh? One is spelled with a capital P P because it's at the beginning of a sentence, but for the rest it looks like it's the same word to me. When William James published a series of lectures on pragmatism, a new name for an old way of thinking, in 1907, he began by identifying the present dilemma in philosophy. There was a present dilemma in philosophy, really. Like they hadn't figured that out in all the thousands of years gone before us. A fundamental and apparently what the heck is that? Irresolute? What's that? A fundamentally and apparently irresolute clash between two ways of thinking about things. He promised that pragmatism would show us the way to overcome this dilemma, and having thus shown its importance, he produced in the second lecture to explain what pragmatism means. James's dilemma is a familiar one. It is a form of the question of how we can reconcile the claims of science on the one hand with those of religion and morality on the other. Ah, interesting. That's not so hard, is it? Seriously. Is that what you have to philosophize about? How dare you call yourself a philosopher? Seriously. Religion is a hoax, and if you're not pierced through that as a philosopher, you should shut your mouth. Science, on the other hand, is based on facts, repeatable in a lab. Right? Those are things you can use as building blocks, not vague terms like God or whatever, or heaven. Right? Heaven is that what you see when you look up in the sky at night. I'm gonna stop this because this makes me angry. So let's see, where were we? They also italicized William James and John Dewey here, so we discussed those two a little already. If you want to check out further what kind of nonsense these people had to bring about, go ahead. The party line, continuing here, is that children need to be surrounded by their peers in order to socialize properly in preparing them for life. Socialization is a natural process to people. It need to not be taught to them, or, more to the point, programmed in them. Yeah. By the way, I'll mention this again, because I, attacked, let me put it that way, attacked religion and God and heaven and those kinds of terms. I'm not an atheist, but I'm not a theist either, and I have no problem discussing terms like God. If you have a normal definition for these terms, then you can start talking about it. It means you have to get on the same page first, right? For most Christians, for instance, God is some grey old figure sitting in on his throne, right? Can't talk to those people unless you get on their terms, and I'm not doing that. It's ridiculous. Those are not terms I as a philosopher can work with. That's funny, I didn't even know I was a philosopher until somebody in a bar. Yeah, in a bar, right? Then you meet all kinds of people in bars, right? And at one point this person came into the bar, and he started talking to the barkeeper, and I don't know exactly what I said to this person that came in, but It was like one sentence, and he shut his face, right? And the person left the bar, and the barkeeper said to me, you sound like Schopenhauer. And I'm like, who is Schopenhauer, you know? Yeah. So I look up Schopenhauer in the library and find out he's a philosopher. Oh, is that so? Yeah. Anyway, continuing here. Children need to be around family, neighbors, and a few close, genuine friends when younger, and participants in church, social, civic, and charitable organization in adolescence. Friends and organizations just described have their time and place in a young person's life. They are not all-consuming intrusions as modern primary and secondary schooling establishments try to make themselves. That one I didn't understand. What's this? Friends and organizations thus just described have their time and place in young person's life. They are not all-consuming intrusions, right, as modern primary and secondary schooling establishments try to make themselves. There are self-serving, domineering social entities which perceive a gain from having general populations presented with only the protocols of a field of study and to have withheld the rationale of that field of study. The knowledge of the rationale of subjects for understanding and the protocols for the expression of application of those subjects compromises what is addressed in a general education. The rationale provides the all-important understanding as to why a subject or proposition is integrated and self-intelligible by presenting the entire thought process. The validated arguments behind the rational conclusion. The protocol is a set of instructions spawned by that consolidated understanding of the rationale with which to manifest an expressed outcome. By presenting only protocols, outcome-based education, which is in reality mind control or programming, that's the reason why they call something that you see on TV a program, is the openly stated goal of public schooling, not general understanding-based education. There's a difference between teaching somebody what he has to remember and regurgitate out on an exam and how to learn. Our country is populated excuse me, by the products of this policy of having only protocols presented and committed to memory. These products are designed to be obedient soldiers, pliable employees, imprudent consumers of goods and services, and otherwise uncritical servants of established corporate and statist interests. In not being trained to think critically and creatively, students are programmed in reading and thinking only to the level of abiding to instructions. Unfortunately, this is mind-numbing action which becomes insidiously habituated. To be under the rule of taskmasters, to be dedicated as to what to think by others or via the media, to labor under the illusion of being a well-informed individual, to become a stillborn adult, a lifelong adolescent, these are the results of our century-old institution. The ideal of self-determination is trampled mercilessly, and in its place grows self-alienation. In being aggressively indoctrinated not to think, that is, in being programmed against our very nature, is it any wonder most of us live in a constant state of low-level fear and are anxiously disoriented in an ocean of chaos without the ability to judge as to what are appropriate and beneficial goods and values? Alright, I heard Mark Passio say something important about that also. Mark Passio, P-A-S-S-I-O, he said that when you start doing the Trivium and you start the grammar, right, then next is logic. And he said that most people do not even come to the second step, and I would tend to have to agree with him. And he said the reason why is that there is so much grammar thrown at you that you're swimming in this sea of illusion and you're overwhelmed by it. You see, that's why you're not even getting to the second step. You're not even looking at what you are being presented with. Can't put it in a right perspective. Continuing here. Man cannot live or maintain health without his primary means of survival, the exercise of his rational thought. If one is trained in the use of the Trivium method, not only can he learn topics of his own, deduce particular rationale from particular protocols, and of course the inverse, but also develop intellectual and value judgment of a high order. Through the efficient attainment of knowledge and understanding, one's intellectual capacities are awakened. Yeah? I've talked about this before. That people say, well, some people are dumb. No, that's not dumb. It's not using his ability. That's the point. He's not using his intelligence. That's why he's dumb. But that's not really true. It's in everybody. Everybody is intelligent. It's a property of humans. Yeah. But if you're not motivated to use your intelligence, what is the result, right? And it's not like you are born intelligent. You know, some children are seen as more intelligent than others, and why is that? Because of their DNA or something? No. It's pure in how far you use your intelligence. Continuing, he will be comfortable at all levels of intellect, lower, higher and subtle. He can look at the world or anything else with clarity and discernment. Then he can act accordingly and with assurance. Said simply, he can thrive in the living of life. One of the several tests to show if an individual is reaching this awakened state of education is when he can thoroughly and critically entertain various ideas without necessarily embracing them. Yeah, that's a good one. He comes into possession of a truly open mind. He frees himself from his own opinions and prejudices. prejudgment, right? The nature of some other tests are quite surprising. These will be discussed elsewhere, it says here. So, again, as I have not read your book, I suspect you have articulated the current cultural problems regarding the topic of learning and all of its effects. Because of the universality of its application, the Trivium, as it has for the last 6 millennia, at minimum, provides its adherents effectiveness in responding to most questions and situations encountered in life. The following are some websites you might find useful. Right? There's a text here from Dorothy Sayers, for instance. And I think I opened the next one right here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, it's this one. October 2003 by Terence Moore. One thing that is never studied in modern, progressive schools of education is the classical medieval organization of studies known as a Trivium. Since... hold on, let me click this away, see what I can... check this. Okay. Looks good. Okay. Back to here. Since classical education regards human beings foremost as thinking creatures, at every level of education, youth must be invited to think about the great problems of the physical and moral worlds. Nonetheless, the ancients knew that learning must be tailored to the age of the student. Yeah. You think that schools is something of the past 100 or so, 200 or 300 or even 400 years? No. If you want to believe what the Indians are telling us, they say that for thousands of years, children have been sent to gurus, teachers, at an age of 4, 5, 6 years, right? And they are sent there and they leave home. They stay with the guru, right? Therefore, ancient educators such as the great Quintilian followed a carefully graduated curriculum that corresponded to the child's level of understanding and his psychological makeup. Dorothy Sayers has explained the Trivium in her seminal essay, The Lost Tools of Learning. We did that last time, remember? Young people have to begin at the beginning. At the first stage of education, students must master the basics or the grammar of every subject. They must learn to read using the parts of words or phonemes, sounds like sound, in order to master the words themselves. They must know the grammar of their own language, which means correct spelling and proper word usage. They learn the people, places and events of world history. They gain a basic number sense by manipulating numbers in various mathematical arrangements. Yeah, this is also something that springs to mind right now. Is that, and this has been going on for years now in the schooling system. There's a nephew of mine, he came to me and he said, I don't understand this math and could you help me please? And so I started to help him and he says, whoa, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing? Didn't you get this at school? And he said, no, we do it like this. And I'm like, what? That is complicated. Why would they do it like that? It doesn't make any sense. You see? They are changing the way in which children are taught in order that you cannot help them. You understand? That's why they do that. It's not because, oh, they found a new kind of math and now they have to teach it to the children. Bogus. Ridiculous. They do not want children to go to their parents for help. That is why. No other reason. Continuing. Students learn to read music, to sing and play basic instruments, and to listen closely to various genres of music. They learn to recognize and to classify various parts of the physical universe. They should particularly learn the different kinds of animals, plants, and planets of our solar system, and various constellations in our galaxy. At this juncture, education relies heavily on the young people's memory. By nature, children love to memorize things. Simply ask a child to repeat back the details of a story you have just read them, and watch his face light up. Once students have gained a pretty good handle on the grammar of various subjects, they move into the logic stage of education. Since this level corresponds to the onset of adolescence, it might also be called argumentative stage. I'll give you an example of that. They were talking about galaxy in previous sentences, right? Planets, stuff like that. So when you're taught that about the galaxies and stuff, and they also tell you about laws of gravity, at a certain point you should find out that these galaxies that we can see in the distance, galaxies that are far, far away, they don't seem to be able to exist with the current laws of gravity that we have. And the form that it has, the spiral form that it has because the outer stars are moving just as fast. No, that's not because. But you find that the outer stars of these arms of the spiral are moving just as fast as the inner stars. So that doesn't make any sense. See? And so then you go and try to find explanations for that. Though students continue to study the facts of the various disciplines, they now have the intellectual capacity to call those facts into question, right? Or to wrestle with them. Indeed, their nature prompts them to do so, as any parent of an adolescent will testify. Let us take an example from a lesson on the Civil War. Teacher says, okay, so Lincoln emancipated only the slaves in the seceded states and left those in the border states in bondage. Okay, I don't know if this is true or not, but was this a good decision or a bad decision? Okay, I don't think as far as I know, but people may correct me. The Lincoln, he didn't care about slaves. Seriously. This had more to do, as far as I understand it, with states being able to decide for themselves what they are allowed to do. Then the class debates for a time. Afterwards, the teacher, using some of the arguments made by the teacher, explains Lincoln's policy of emancipation. Logic or argumentation is applicable to all subjects. A good A mathematics teacher will ask a student when venturing a solution to a problem to defend his answer. Okay, we are an hour into this already.
Ladies and gentlemen, Solvinur Event.
Okay, why are we here? Part 1. Literacy is a form of slavery until a systematic form of critical thinking is practiced by the reader. Now, many people may be offended by that statement, but we'll be quickly going into why that is so. The status quo, or our existing state of affairs, is in conflict with human needs for survival. The storm of irrationality has 3 major components: censorship or secrecy, which is the act of occulting information; corruption of education, which leaves you intellectually self-defenseless; and 3, absence of nonviolent communication, which prevents constructive action. Ending secrecy and revealing the truth does not automatically give people critical thinking. Providing intellectual self-defense does not automatically prevent censorship, nor does it teach how to communicate. Learning how to communicate does not end in secrecy, nor does it provide critical thinking. So let's begin by defining 13 simple concepts. Number 1, axiom of non-aggression is the ethical stance which asserts that aggression is inherently illegitimate. Aggression is defined as the... Excuse me, I'm going to have to keep that bottle of water open. Oh, you skipped. Okay, there we go. Okay. Aggression is defined as the initiation of physical force against persons or property, the threat of such or fraud upon persons or their property. In contrast to pacifism, the non-aggression principle does not preclude violent self-defense. The principle is a deontological or rule-based ethical stance. Education to bring about, to extract, to provide a form of, or to produce from a state of occultation, or in other words, to take out of the hidden. From the Latin verb educo, to lead out or draw out. Occult from the Latin verb occulto, to hide or to keep secret. Therefore, education is the process of unocculting reality. Autonomy from ancient Greek, autos, self, and nomos, law, one who gives oneself their own law, is a concept found in moral, political, and bioethical philosophy. Within these contexts, it refers to the capacity of a rational individual to make an informed, uncoerced decision. Government is derived from the Latin word gubernare, a verb meaning to control, combined with mente, a Latin noun meaning mind. Government means to control the mind. Cybernetics from the Greek, kybernetes, is a steersman, a governor, pilot, rudder, the same root as government, a broad field of study which includes equations to control human behavior via language. In other words, if the purpose of government is to control the mind, cybernetics would be the instruction manual on how to control your mind. And this will mean more when we get into Norbert Wiener in probably about 20 or 30 minutes. Conspiracy from the Latin verb conspire. To conspire is the act of occulting information in order to prey on those who have been denied access to the same set of useful information. Terrorism, government by force, and of course that's from the Oxford English Dictionary, so any terrorism, so-called, that you find out there, that is governments committing those things to govern the people. Missing a lack of awareness or knowledge as a consequence, oh, and I forgot I have this microphone in my hand, that would help, huh? A consequence of never having had the choice or opportunity to be exposed to it. Had they been exposed to awareness or knowledge, it would have been integrated into their thoughts and actions had they only been given the opportunity. Ignorant, someone who is aware of a concept or knowledge and yet does not integrate this information and thus are resistant to learning by their own choice or choosing not to learn, which is also denial. Liber, this is a very important concept that everybody needs to get familiar with. Liber is the Latin word for book, and it is also the word for freedom, and thus the root word of liberty. That's where we put books in. We put them in libraries, libraries. Reading books provides the road to cognitive liberty and freedom.
Hey, welcome back everybody. Grab a cup of coffee. So, I hope you like what you're hearing. If you want specific topics discussed, you can send them to my email. I'm not promising I will cover your topic. Or if you have any questions, that's also fine. Send them to solvinur2@yahoo.com. It's SOLVINUR, the number 2, @yahoo.com. Welcome everybody in Ireland, welcome everybody in the United States, where this will be rebroadcast at Sunday, 9 AM Eastern Time. So let's pick this up where we left off. I was thinking about doing something else, but this is good enough, because I love things that we can do, you know. Tragedy and Hope, for instance. It's not only a good website, but it's also a book that we could start getting into. He explains a lot about history. He names the people that are indeed influential. That's good to have that information. But I'm gonna stick to this for now. Let's see, where were we? Ah yes, Ashbrook. Uppala. High school should be considered the third part of the Trivium, the rhetorical stage. Having the facts at their disposal and being able to wrestle with them, students will now be able to express themselves with increasing grace and at considerable length, both in speech and writing. They will learn to make coherent literary, historical, mathematical, and scientific arguments. They are ready to tackle difficult readings and problems. Alright? How far are you in this? Can you do that? Can you make coherent literal, historical, mathematical, and scientific arguments? If not, you should go back to the grammar stage. Too often in this country, we wait until college to challenge young people with meaningful intellectual work. First grammar, then logic, and then you can make literary, historical, mathematical, and scientific arguments. If this sounds scary to you, you should go back. Get yourself more information and start using your mind. Start using your intelligence. It's liberating. They don't call it the 7 liberal arts for nothing. Right? Also, you will get more self-esteem. And also, you will be able to defeat any of those nitwits that try to influence your mind. Too often in this country, we wait until college to challenge young people with meaningful intellectual work, numbing their minds with worksheets and starving their souls by using teacher edition approaches to even the greatest works of literature. When you're that age, you should be able to read that stuff and make up your own mind. What do they mean by teacher edition? Once some of my... Oh, I forgot something. No, I didn't forget. Okay. We're good. Where were we? Once some of my own students asked me whether what we were going to do in my class was just read books and talk about them. Yes, as well as write papers and take a test or two. No worksheets? Asked one student. No, I responded, because the problem of the world do not come to you in the form of a worksheet. Instead, you must understand the situation, formulate a response, and put that response into action. Yeah, you have to be very careful with that too. See? It says here, instead you must understand the situation. Right? That is problem. Right? Then formulate a response. That is reaction. Right? So be very wary. Most of the problems that are put in front of you aren't really problems. They are just a part of a Hegelian dialectic being used against you. They know you have intelligence. They know how your logic works, you see. And they're using it against you. So be very wary about the facts that you accept as facts. Like, for instance, global warming. It's nonsense. It really is nonsense. There is only one factor that is of uttermost importance when you are talking about the warmth of the earth. And that is the sun. That one is the most responsible. Period. It has nothing to do with what the little things that we burn. It's rather arrogant to think that we can destroy the earth. You hear that all the time also. This earth has existed for a very, very long time, and it has gone through multiple extinction level events, and yet here we are, you see? Some of these people are just unbelievable. This also has to do with the Club of Rome. They, in the 1970s, were quote-unquote foreseeing, because it's all manufactured nonsense, this global warming. Go look at it. Go Google Club of Rome, global warming. You will find that they mention it in their outputs. What do you call that? In the literature they bring out. They say that in the 1970s, when everybody was supposed to think that we're going into a global cooling. Right? There is no such thing as global warming. And then, when the media finds out that that may not be a correct claim and that the people may not be falling for it, they call it climate change. My God! Don't fall for this crap. If there's anything going on in our skies, it's those fricking chemtrails. Those need to be stopped immediately. Let me continue. Instead, you must understand the situation, formulate a response, and put that response into action. By the time young people reach their teens, they are ready to explore the great questions posed by moral and physical worlds in order to reflect on the nature of their humanity. Really. to understand their place in the cosmos, and to articulate convincingly their findings. Such an undertaking requires them to read and discuss the classics, which contain the best that has been thought and said and done by the great thinkers and heroes of the past. I've read some of those classics. They are in some cases disgusting. How otherwise should we prepare them for the world that will face and the positions of responsibility they will inherit? Okay. Continuing here from another WordPad, because we did the ashbrook.org publications, more Trivium. And of course, a word search of Trivium and Trivium School and liberal arts would be helpful. Yeah, I've done that. It's okay to do that. Trivium, if you want to learn about the Trivium, just go to triviumeducation.com and figure out everything that there is there. It's the best site out there. What you will find if you Google the word Trivium, a lot of it is tainted by religion. Right? This is, by the way, this is all written by Gino Denning, who I should be having on next week in the podcast. So I wish you all the best to you in your speaking career, and I hope these might be seeds for furthering the cause of thought, should you decide to research and write about them. Thought spelled with a capital T. Warmest personal regards, Gene O'Denning. Yeah, awesome. So, I'm not having a speaking career here, by the way. I'd rather be doing something else. I don't do this for fun, so to speak. The point is that I started making radio with something else in mind, actually. And it has led to this, which is okay. It's still it still has the same goal, but it's really different than what I did in the previous years. In the previous years, I was explaining to people what is a false flag operation and stuff like that. Right? But I found out that sometimes what happens is that only other hosts are listening to you. So I was like, why am I telling these other hosts what they already know, right? That doesn't make any sense. But the reason why I started making radio is because people need to wake up, period. If we don't wake up, this madness that we live in, this system that we live under will continue. And we have to stop it. And there's no need for violence. All we have to do is withdraw ourselves from the system. It will fall on its own. Because you see, we have the power, not those elites. They are pigs. They wouldn't survive a day without us, you see. They need us. We don't need them. We have the power, nobody else. And if we say it's enough, it stops. Period. So that's the reason why I started making radio. But you find that the people listening to you already know that. So, you know, that's not a subject anymore. That's not a topic anymore to be discussed. You should be aware already. Not going back there again. We're going to continue this at a higher level. Continuing. The following is an excerpt from another letter which may better clarify the 7 liberal arts and sciences. Liberal is used here not in the modern but in the classical sense. It is literary, liberating, or setting individual minds free from ignorance through the understanding of reality. Yeah, that's good. I've said in the past, if the world doesn't make sense to you, you're not awake. It's as simple as that. If you don't have an understanding of reality, you're asleep. You're a zombie. So, and if you feel addressed by that, if you're angry, and then I'm calling you a zombie, then the shoe fits. Understanding of reality is important. Why is it important? Because if you do not understand reality, your actions will be useless. You can only act in a way that is good for you if you know in what reality you are living. Continuing. As regards contemporary society, this understanding would liberate us from taskmasters of all sorts, despots in school and in the workplace, unscrupulous professionals, and self-serving propagandists in government, media, and advertising. Yeah. There's a nice video out there. I hope it's still out there. Sometimes, I'm thinking like, why does mainstream media put this out? In this case, it is the BBC. Go Google BBC The Trap. Quite simple, right? The Trap. It's a part of a trilogy, I guess. There's more of them, which I don't remember the name. The Century of the Self is another one. Same producer, same maker. Century of the Self and The Trap. Go look at them. They're good. And then I wonder, why would the BBC put out something like this? Aren't they controlled? Isn't that controlled media? Why would you make people wiser? The Trivium. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, there I was. The Trivium. That's 1. General grammar. 2. Formal logic. 3. Classical rhetoric. Then there's the Quadrivium, which we will not get into for years. Maybe later. 4. The Quadrivium. Arithmetic, or math, geometry, music and astronomy. Okay, arithmetic is numbers. Geometry is numbers in space. Music is numbers in time. Astronomy is numbers in time and space. Those are, by the way, interesting ideas. Time, space. I've had William Roberts as a guest in the past, and we talked about time and space. It was interesting. The Trivium, which pertains to mind. The elementary 3. 1. Grammar. Discovering and ordering facts of reality comprises basic systematic knowledge. Not only the rules developed and applied to the ordering of words, concepts for verbal expression and communication, but our first contact with conscious order as such. This is the initial self-conscious technique used in properly, discursively or sequentially organizing a body of knowledge from raw factual data for the purpose of gaining understanding through logic, and thus also organizing the individual human mind. We've read this before, but it doesn't hurt to read it again. It's important. It is the foundation upon which all other methods of organization and order are built. Special grammar properly relates words to other words within a specified language, like English, German, Dutch, French, and so on. General grammar relates words to objective reality in any language and applies to all subjects as the first set of building blocks to integrated or fully mindful objective knowledge. Where were we? A body of knowledge which has been gathered and arranged under the rules of general grammar can now be subjected to logic for full understanding, which emphatically is a separate intellectual procedure. Yeah, I'm going to say something about this word understanding here. It doesn't tie to this, but I'll mention this word also. At least it doesn't tie to this, I say, but maybe it does and I just haven't found out yet. There's also this word called substance. Sub means below. Stance means stance or to stand. Understanding is also such a word, right? In Dutch we have a better word, I think, for it. Although we have more words for it actually. But one word is begrip. That's Dutch word. Begrip. B-E-G-R-I-P. Just lose the first two letters, B-E, because that's a prefix, and you get grip. See? I think that's a better word. If you grip something, you have an understanding of it. And also, if you're not able to explain something to somebody else, you're not understanding. So, but I don't like this word understanding. Standing under what exactly? It's like a word research. Research? Right? Like the searching has already been done and you're gonna do it again. Research. In Dutch we have a very strange word for that which kind of ties to this understanding. We call it, I'll translate this literally, under-search. What? Under-search? Why would you call it under-search? Why not just call it search? Anyway, enough about that. Picking this up again, a body of knowledge which has been gathered and arranged under the rules of general grammar can now be subjected to logic for full understanding, which, emphatically, is a separate intellectual procedure. 2. Logic. Developing the faculty of reason in establishing valid, that is, non-contradictory relationships among facts yields basic systematic understanding. It is a guide for thinking correctly, thinking without contradiction, right? Need to get rid of the double think, because you in the media they use a lot of double speak. More concisely, they're just trying to confuse you, by the way, with this double speak, making you think like, what did he say? You know, when you get that idea, when you get that in the back of your mind that's going like, what did he say? You have to take a closer look, because he's probably using some error and trying to make you think that he's learned or is an authority. More concisely, it is the art of non-contradictory identification. Right? The word identification is important here. The work of logic is proof. Proof consists of establishing the truth and validity of a concept or proposition in correspondence with objective, factual reality by following a self-consistent chain of higher-level thought back down to the foundational primary concepts or axioms. It says here between brackets existence, consciousness and causality. Yeah, existence. Consciousness and causality. The word consciousness springs out for me here. Because that is a really subtle thing, consciousness. It's even more subtle than mind, which is already subtle. It's more subtle than intelligence. It's more subtle than ego. Consciousness is hard to describe. I've thought a lot about it, this word. And in Dutch, we also have a word for that. And it might point in the right direction. And in a sense, it is also in the word consciousness. But I'm not sure about that, because it doesn't really match up. But in Dutch, we say bewustzijn. And that is also a strange word. But let's tear this word apart, shall we? The word bewustzijn, B-E-W-U-S-T, Z or Z, and then I-J, which we call I, or what would sometimes in your language be a Y, and an N. So we have that's actually a word, this Dutch word bewustzijn, which is a translation for consciousness, is actually made of 3 words. It's the first 2 letters, that's B, that's the prefix, and then the last 3 letters is zijn, which means to be. And then in between you have W-U-S-T, and that is really not a word. But it seems to me that it derives from the German wissen, which means to know. So there is something about knowledge and being in this word. Consciousness. Now if you drop the con and you get scious, which may tie to science, right? Or knowledge. As far as I know, con means to bring together, and then the nes would tie to the Dutch word zijn, which means to be. So, but how can you be knowledge, right? That doesn't seem to make sense. So, I'm thinking like, if you understand something, it has woven itself into your consciousness. Right? That's how you won't be told nonsense, because your consciousness will protect you, because you're already, quote unquote, aware of what's going on. You see? So the more developed your consciousness is, the stronger you are, you see? And then there's the problem of, where does consciousness come from? What is it? Right? If you want to believe these so-called scientists of today, they say, well, it's a combination of amino acids, we put in some electricity and poof, you got consciousness. Well, really? If that's true, why don't you revive a dead guy for me? Make him conscious again. Right? They don't do that because they can't. Unless he just died, you know, there's still some life left in there. You might be able to resurrect somebody. Right? But if it's, let's say, 3 months, it's been in a coffin, You're not going to be able to bring consciousness back to that person, to that body. Those are, by the way, not the same things, person and body. So where does consciousness come from? And I'm going to step out on a limb here, make a dangerous claim, so to speak. Consciousness comes from you. You are the source of consciousness. I have no way to prove this. That's why it's very dangerous to make such claims, see? But I am just entertaining that for now, because it's the best that I can come up with. That you are the source of this consciousnness. And it is pervading your whole body. It's not just up inside your head, as somebody will claim. It's all over your body. Continuing, it is a means of keeping us in touch and grounded to objective reality in our search for valid knowledge and understanding. Logic brings the rhythm of the subjective thoughts of the mind and the subsequent actions of the body into harmony with the rhythm of the objective universe. Okay? This is the intended tone of the entire letter, to amicably synchronize individual mental processes and their attendant actions with the processes of a surrounding natural, factual existence over the period of a lifetime. Then there's 3, rhetoric. And we're not going to do rhetoric for a while yet, people. We're going to be, as far as I'm concerned anyway, going to be concentrating on grammar and logic. And then later I will try to do rhetoric, because I've just been introduced to this stuff myself, guys. This is also new for me, so first the grammar, then the logic, and then we will see what we can do about the rhetoric, okay? 3 is rhetoric, applying knowledge. The first word is important here. Applying. Alright, it's not like you're used to from these politicians. Yeah, that gives the word rhetoric, gives it a bad name, right? Because they're lying, they're liars. So rhetoric is applying knowledge and understanding expressively comprises wisdom. Or, in other words, it is systematically usable knowledge and understanding. Right? So rhetoric, wisdom. To explore and find the proper choice of methods for cogently expressing the conclusions of grammar and logic on a subject in writing and or oral oratory, right? Like I said, if you can't explain something to someone else about a certain topic, then you've not fully understood it. Then there's still things missing. The enunciation of these conclusions is called a statement of rationale. The set of instructions deduced from the rationale for the purpose of applications of those conclusions in the real world is called a statement of protocols. Okay. I'll just take that for what it is now, because I'll take it as grammar, okay? Because what the heck? Let's try this again. The enunciation of those conclusions is called a statement of rationale. Okay? The set of instructions deduced from the rationale for the purpose of application of those conclusions in the real world is called a statement of protocols. Protocols. Okay, let's see what we can do. Protocols. Copy. Paste that into searching. Search this word for me. Protocols. Wikipedia. No, that's not a source. Blah blah. What's this? Merriam-Webster. No, I don't like that. That's not a source I would like to see. This is protocol registries. What's that? No. Okay, let me redefine the search here. Put dictionary in front of it. Dictionary. Enter. And then we get Merriam Dictionary, Oxford Dictionary. Let's see how they view this. Not that I'm saying that Oxford is any good. Protocol is a noun. Yeah. The official procedure or system of rules governing affairs of state or diplomatic occasions. That was one. Then there's two. The original draft of a diplomatic document, especially of the terms of a treaty agreed to in conference and signed by parties. Or three. Formal or official records of scientific experimental observations. 4. Computing a set of rules governing the exchange or transmissions of data between devices. Aha. Well, we'll have to repeat this at some other point, guys. 1. Discovering and arranging knowledge, a body of knowledge, under general grammar. 2. Fully understanding that knowledge under formal logic. And 3. Wisely expressing and using that knowledge and understanding under classical rhetoric are 3 distinctly different but interrelated disciplines, which yield, when applied as an integrated unit, truth. Okay, that's also why I'm kind of interested in this whole Trivium thing, because the truth, that's one of the most important things to me. That I could say, I dare say, it is the most important thing to me. That's this started at a very young age. That's why it's kind of strange that I found out, at a rather late age, that I was a philosopher. But this started at a really, really young age for me. As soon as I was aware of my consciousness, let's put it that way, I was like, what is going on here? Where the heck am I? And those questions are still bugging me. So, still finding out what is going on here. What am I doing here? Did I is it so that as soon as a baby is born, he's just put in this reality and there's nothing that he could have done about it? Right? Involuntary presence, so to speak. Or the more dangerous thought of line, and this is really, really very dangerous. Did I choose to be here? That's a very dangerous question. Right? Some people, they take this really, really too far and they say, God sent me here to bring you this message. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. Very, very dangerous. So, but the truth in that sense is very important to me. I still have no clue as to why I'm here. Right? And so the truth would help me understand why I am here. So for instance, you start thinking about the universe. And I'm thinking, okay, we've got this universe and it's full of stars, and these stars give off heat, and there's planets around these stars. And these planets, they are able to sustain life. Right? So my conclusion then is the universe was made to sustain life. That's it. There's no other reason for the universe to be than to give, and this is another very dangerous idea, than to give living entities the possibility to express themselves. Right? Be very careful, because this is also a very, very dangerous idea. Yeah. You can run with that in all kinds of directions and you end up in very dangerous territory. Yeah. So truth is very important to me. Anyway, that's a personal note. Let's continue here with this Trivium.doc. We're going to go a little bit into Quadrivium. The Quadrivium, which pertains to matter and quantity. Okay, so the Trivium pertains to mind, and the Quadrivium pertains to matter and quantity. The advanced four. Mathematics is number in itself, which is a pure abstraction, that is, outside of space and time. I've listened to people like Manly P. Hall, and he also talked about numbers, and I found it very distressing that he wouldn't talk about the number 0, or 1, or 2 for that matter. How about that, huh? He's supposed to be a teacher, and he's not explaining you about the numbers 0, 1 and 2. I've also read a book about Kabbalah, and there they claim that 0 doesn't exist, so we're not going to talk about it. But others have taught me that 1 is unity, 2 is the first division, 3 is the first number, which is maybe why Manly P. Hall started at 3. 4 is to encompass something, right? Like a field where you grow your food. Those are usually squares. That ties to the number 4. 5, as far as I remember, if I remember this correct, is life. 6 is the first perfect number. 7 is the law. And 8 I don't remember. And then 9 encompasses all of them. There's probably much more to be said about numbers, but we'll get in. Maybe we will get into that another time. 6 is music. Oh, well, it says 6 here. Maybe I shouldn't have read that. So we're talking Quadrivium. Is mathematics, geometry, is number in space. 6 is music or harmonic theory, which is number in time. Then 7, astronomy, number in space and time. So we have A, number, B, geometry, C, harmonics, and D, cosmology. Notice, by the way, that just as with the Trivium, the order in which these are presented is important. You don't start with cosmology and then go to geometry and then music and then number, right? You start with number, then number in space, then time and space, number and time for harmonics, and then number, time and space for cosmology. The subjects of the Trivium, originally organized by Pythagoras, the ancient Greek philosopher Peter Bauer. Let me check this again. This is Peter Bauer. Let's see what we get here. If I remembered that correct. So maybe I didn't remember that correct. Let's see. Pythagoras. Is that the same person? Peter Gower. Yes, exactly. Peter Gower. Here we go. Peter Gower, one of the most celebrated of the Grecian philosophers and the founder of what has been called the Italic school, was born at Samos in the period 586-69 BC, the year 582 being favored as the probable one of his birth. Educated as an athlete, he subsequently abandoned that profession and devoted himself to the study of philosophy. He traveled through Egypt. Egypt, people! Egypt! Very important. Chaldea and Asia Minor, same, also important. And is said to have submitted to the initiations, also an important word, initiations, in those countries for the purpose of acquiring knowledge, right? We're talking about Peter Gower here. Who do you think he is? That's Pythagoras. Got this information from Bill Cooper. Picking us up again. The subjects of the quadrivium, originally organized by Pythagoras, the ancient Greek philosopher, provided much of the more advanced study prior to the integration of the science of physics by Galileo and Isaac Newton. This integration precipitated the rise in studies of other specialized sciences. But, again, you can see the sensible and consistent manner in which the material of knowledge was presented. In the Middle Ages, the trivium was the method of learning presented in primary education, and the quadrivium comprised the subjects to be learned by scholars in secondary education. Tertiary education provided professional study. Today, the methods of learning and thinking via the trivium has not been surpassed, even as the galaxy of subjects to be explored and learned has expanded immensely. Excuse me. The various formal arts, including the liberal arts, are classical concepts from ancient Greece and Rome. Yeah, they got it from Egypt. And I'm not really sure about this, because about what I'm going to say, by the way. Not this, but there's different claims going around, so I'm unsure, because it's so far back in history that it all becomes kind of mythological, and I'm not sure what to accept as fact or not. But it seems like these Egyptians got their knowledge from India. There's lots of things to be known about India. India was at a time invaded by the Aryans. Okay? Aryans are not white people. Aryans are brown people. Remember that. But so at a certain point, though, it seems also there is a myth in India regarding this figure called Rama, who, by the way, is sometimes depicted as carrying a tool with which you can plow the ground. Right, so he may have been important in our knowledge of how to grow food. But remember, this is all myth, people. This Rama, who must have lived a long time, because just as in in the Bible you can find some of these genealogies, what do you call them? You say, well, this one was parent to this one and lived for so long, and then his children lived for so long, and they got this children and that children. Remember those parts of the Bible? And they claim that, well, these people lived like 600-700 years. So the same must have gone for this Rama, because for 10 generations long he chased the Kshatriyas out of India, because the Kshatriyas had stood up against the Brahmanas. Right? There's a division in society there, which still exists today, and they have the Brahmanas at the top. Those are your priests or scientists. Then beneath them you have the Kshatriyas. Those are military personnel. Then beneath those are the Vaishyas. And then those are merchants, mercenaries, merchants. Those two words also go together, by the way. And then beneath that you got Sudras. That's basically you and me. And then there is even a class below that which was not named, but they call them the untouchables. So, but at a certain point, apparently, these Kshatriyas, they were not following the orders of the Brahmanas, and so this Rama, he got very mad and chased down all these Kshatriyas for 10 generations. And the myth is that that's how they ended up in Egypt. Okay. These various formal arts, including the liberal arts, are classical concepts from ancient Greece and Rome, which were refined in medieval times. Really, I'm wondering about that refinement, but we will see. The following contrast the three classical arts in contemporary terms. Let's see. Oh, we are at 57. We'll have to pick this up next week, people. So, because we're coming about to the end of the show, and I'm just gonna put up a little going away music. I want to thank you all for listening. I'll be back next week, and then I'll be playing a podcast, because if all goes well I will be having a talk with Gene O'Denning. If you have questions for him, please send them to Solvinur2@yahoo.com. That's SOLVINUR 2@yahoo.com. So that's it for me for this week, people. Take care.